actually. So that's why I felt like, sharing them with you. I hope you guys also enjoyed it.
Yes, they are indeed.
Amazing. So I've just received a message that we are live on YouTube and we can begin the session. So public school in Delhi. She is one of those pioneers in education who has created new ways of learning for children in various different domains and different classes, and she's known for that.
Thank you.
The reason why we chose this topic is because of the COVID-19 situation. All of us, the students, the parents, and most importantly the teachers, have been included forcefully, reluctantly, but because it was a requirement, into the online learning space. Now we have to teach students online, and we have all been trying to grapple with the situation, trying to make our systems better. And that is why it was pertinent to have this discussion where the veterans of the industry who are going to implement these things talk about it, share their experiences, and tell us what exactly to do so that schools all around the country can learn from them. So I would like to start with Ms. Vanita Sehgal, ma'am. Ma'am, what do you think blended learning really means in the Indian context?
First of all, I would like to state here, blended learning is not anything new, actually. It's something which is being followed all over the world, which basically means that you do online teaching as well as face-to-face teaching. I think with the COVID scenario, we are sort of meaning it to mean when you have online teaching at home and you have face-to-face teaching in the school. So we are watching a lot of online teaching. I would not call that blended learning right now, because when the children go to school and then they actually have a face-to-face with the teacher. So right now I'm looking at something very exciting really coming up, because I think teachers all over the country and all over the world have become very proficient with their online skills. A lot is there still, but it's going to be the future in the sense that I think we need a little bit more of what is happening today, because our classes have become very formal and very regimentalized. And I think this is going to give us the freedom to actually explore a lot more. So
that's an amazing point.
Great future.
Wow. So the freedom to explore. Vandana, ma'am, what do you think about blended learning?
Well, I agree with Vanita ji. I think more than anything, it has given us an opportunity to explore a different realm altogether. I mean, till now, we were, inside the school, and we were ensuring that whatever curriculum had to be imparted was done within the four walls of the classroom. And we never really thought of conducting classes online, because we felt, that is the only path that we knew. I mean, it was okay for, people who in the West or in other countries where people wanted to homeschool their children, or in remote areas where children did not have access to suitable schools and teachers, for them to have, online learning. But I think what has happened now is that we have learned a completely different modality. And I think the education paradigm is going to change in unbelievable ways, even when the so-called threat of COVID ceases to be. Because I think that with blended learning, we as educators and students at home will get immense flexibility in learning. We are not just going to be, following the path that we have been following till now. We have an alternative path ready. And I think it would do us very well and augur very well for the future if we can truly adopt blending learning as a way of education going forward, not just as something to resort to in an emergency. Thank you.
That's a very important point. I mean, something we thought only existed in the fringes of education, something as a new thing is now becoming mainstream. Amazing. Premkumar sir, what do you think, blended learning means and how is it important for the Indian context?
I fully endorse with the opinion of Vanita ma'am and Vandana ji there. See, with the global health crisis going on due to this pandemic, it's only natural to be focused on the present, actually. But as the world begins to feel the beneficial effects of the emergency measures against COVID-19, I think it is time to look into the future. What we have gained or learned from this pandemic, when all is said and done, is a big question, right? Will school ever be the same again now? That this prolonged period of forced closure has pushed all educators, not just in India, even the Middle East CBSE schools, and around in the world towards a more extensive use of technology, which we have never ever used, at least in the Indian scenario, to grant their students continuity in the face of adverse circumstances. Now, blended learning is a mix of learning methods that contain many ways of teaching, combining online digital media with traditional classroom methods. So this new learning method can develop the interests and individual skills of any student much more than the classic top-down lessons. This is what my teacher and I have experienced in the last 6 months due to the forced closure of our schools here. That's my thought.
That's amazing, sir. And actually, I would like to continue from there with a question for you, sir. You talked about the various virtues which are there in blended learning. Can you tell us some of the advantages of blended learning?
There are several advantages of this blended learning, if you ask me, which we have experienced. Because in blended learning, what we have learned is...
Sir, I'm so sorry, sir. Your camera is... I think it... yeah.
Am I muted?
No. Now you're visible and audible.
Yeah. See, with the blended learning, what we have learned here is that the whole classroom, the world is our classroom, right? Because blended learning has taught both the teacher and the taught that it's impossible to memorize all of the available human knowledge in a short span of our lifetime. So education is no longer about memorizing facts and answering the textual questions, but it's about applying knowledge to real life situations. And as the NEP 2020 has envisaged that learning should be experiential, and this is the best time we teachers here felt that the students can learn on their own, and there is not much dependence of students on the teachers. So the self-reliance and learning by doing has become the order of the day with this online education that has been going on for the last 6 to 7 months in our country here. And children have learned, parents have learned, teachers have also learned that school is not the only place where you can learn. Not all learning happens only in the school now. Everybody has realized that learning is beyond the 4 walls of the school. In other words, the world is your classroom, is what my message to everyone.
Wow. So those are really valid points. Vanita ma'am, I had a question for you. So as Premkumar sir said, now the world can actually get inside the classroom. Now, if the world is going to come inside the classroom, how does the future Indian classroom look like with respect to blended learning and considering it's the Indian context that we're talking about?
The world has always been there. And we have in our schools, I think all of us have been sort of insisting that the teachers use technology. But what has been happening finding really is, Saurabh, that teachers have not been using it. So I think what COVID has done is made them forced to their time to it. I visualize the classroom. Now, it's something very different. And here I would like to say, I mean, as somebody who's been principal of a school, which I have 35 to 40 kids in a class, I actually visualize the ideal classroom, and it can happen in the Indian scenario. One is you have lesser numbers. If you want this to really succeed, the lesser numbers you have, 20 to 25. You change the seating of the classrooms and you make them much more friendly to everybody facing each other, because that's the way they're talking about, children talk to each other. Does the facilitator, she's not the teacher. You're talking of very high IT equipment in the classrooms. So we're looking at maybe video conferencing screens. We're looking at not only just the smart boards, but you have a child sitting in a classroom and he doesn't have to walk to the auditorium. He can talk to anybody sitting in the classroom. That's what's happened with online. It's made us realize that you could be sitting anywhere. And you could have, instead of, we have problems in school that the hall is booked and the seminar room is booked. Here you sit in the classroom. You need to give them computers in the classroom. You need to have, it's got to be a class. You've got to have a school which is going to be completely, IT tuned. You've got to have people who are going to manage it. You've got to have good electricity there. But in order to make blended learning succeed, I think this is it. And one thing which has always been my dream, and I didn't manage to do it in the school, and that is that classrooms, I feel in India, at least in majority of the classrooms, the older schools, they're not very warm and inviting. You just have the doors, the desks, and you have the chairs. And if you go to a lot of the classrooms in the West, you do see that the teacher, it's a teacher's classroom and the children come there. And the junior schools, you'll see the classrooms are really warm and nice because it's one teacher staying there. So I think that's one thing that we need to look at. Make the classrooms the subject classrooms. Let the teachers fill it up with stuff from, like if you're doing geography, let the maps and the globe and everything be there. Let the children come there and feel that they're doing geography. So I think the whole environment needs to change. It's going to be a lot of hard work, but it can be done.
That sounds amazing, because that involves so many different people working together to, create a setting which is, very acceptable, very warm, at the same time is, conducive for children to learn.
Why would I come to a class and, with empty desks and chairs when he's coming from home? We're talking about children who've been sitting in the comfort and COVID at their home. And then make those classrooms inviting. Let the children go from class to class. They like it. Let the teacher make a class. I think I'm looking at
that's perfect. And that's a very valid point. Vandana ma'am, I wanted to ask you, it's said that it takes a village to raise a kid. And like how Vanita ma'am just said, we need so many people to work on this to create better classrooms. Do you think that the parents will be willing to put in the same amount of effort to create that blending learning environment in the Indian classroom?
See, it's a very tricky road. In the past and, even today, we are the ones who are deciding how to implement the education that we are imparting to our children. And although we were forced due to circumstances by COVID to, almost overnight move to a different modality, which we did. And I must say that we are doing it very well. However, I do think that the parents' role in this blended learning will mean that the inputs of the parents are going to be important. More than they were when the children were only learning in the classroom. Because there is a lot of part of blended learning which will be governed or controlled or even supervised by the parents. And perhaps to even provide for maybe, the internet connection and maybe some other things. So, for example, let me share with you that our school is moving into the half-yearly examination very soon. So, there are certain areas where we are not going to have any invigilation, even online. And we have requested the parents to be the supervisors. And, so we have to take them on board with our policies and obviously design the classroom or the blended learning program in a way that they are on board with it, So it will, yes, absolutely. I'd like to reiterate and to emphasize what you said, that it takes a village. Well, you said to educate a child, but it actually takes a village to bring up a child. And having said this, let me also say to you that I have been of the absolute belief that the building and the infrastructure and the principal can completely be done away with. I'm sorry, if there is a willing teacher and a student. And I have always maintained that you don't need a building for a school to exist. You need maybe a person under a tree and a few children around him or her. And that loving connection and that connection of respect and the attitude of taking in whatever the teacher is telling you is all that is really required in a school. Of course, we are not in the dark ages any longer, and we are in a situation where we have the infrastructure, which is wonderful. And I'm really, really actually quite excited how we are going to be able to use the advantages of blended learning to make our education more wholesome going forward.
May I add a few more points to the discussion happening now, because I am inspired by what Vandana ma'am just spoke. Now, I just want to share that in Jharkhand, there's a village where a teacher used a microphone, to address a large number of students, and the students were not attending school. Believe me, in that village, all the walls of the houses, they made a black board painted there, and the students are sitting and writing on that. You see, one teacher, as she was just speaking about one teacher and a few students under a tree, I immediately recall this particular school, not a school, a village in Jharkhand, where large number of students are sitting in a row, and the houses have their walls painted black, and everyone has a chalk. They are writing and learning. That is why exactly I said the world is your classroom, is not the four walls. And another point which I wanted to share again after I heard Vandana ji is the respect for teachers in the parents has grown manifold times during this period of time. It is now that the parents who are sitting at home are able to visualize the effort of the teacher and how much the teacher works hard to educate his or her child. So the rapport between the school and home has really, really increased in the last 6 months, and parents have a lovely words to speak about the teachers' effort.
I'd like to add something, if I may.
Yes,
Saurabh.
please.
So I'm inspired by Mr. Premkumar ji. He's absolutely right. I have, my teachers have been sharing with me that, ma'am, there are certain mothers or fathers who are actually attending the class with their children, saying that, every now and then, not every day, but we love to come in and listen to you, because there's so much that we feel we are learning from just listening to you, because these are not things that were taught to us when we were children. And I think it's wonderful. It really is that teachers have been able to take on this role so beautifully. And I am absolutely of the opinion that along with all the health workers and the doctors and the armed forces and everything, teachers are truly the unsung heroes. Everybody else is being celebrated and sung about, but
Yes.
teachers are the true unsung heroes of this time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, I agree with you, Vanita, ma'am. Because this is turning out to be such a nice, interesting discussion, I want to have your opinion as well. Before as Premkumar sir and Vandana Chawla ma'am has already pointed out, how parents are getting more involved. But before it was kind of a black box system, where parents would send the children to the school and then they would kind of forget about a lot of things. But now they see
Exactly.
the intricacy. Do you think this relationship should continue, and how will it continue?
I would like to a little different here, because I feel that as long as our parents are the junior school up to class 5, I would see an immense amount of interest even there. So in fact, when they come to the 6th, the parents would stop coming. And I think the larger reason for this really is that the students did not allow them to come. So I would see in Puram that when we had functions in the 11th and 12th, we were literally begging parents to come so we could fill up the hall. And we were begging parents not to bring the whole family, because we couldn't have the chacha and the chachi and the mama and the mami, in the place. So I think parents have always been interested. It's just now with being at home, I think the kids haven't been able to throw them out, so they're out of the room. So they're taking an interest. I felt even at that time that I think parents were, at least I felt in Puram, that I thought parents were very supportive. I mean, they didn't really question. If there was a problem, they would ask us and we would sort it out. And I feel even now, Saurabh, I have been observing classes for the past 6 months since I retired from Puram and I joined BPS Society as the executive head of their HRD. So we've been observing our 220 schools, 220 odd schools, which are all over the country and a few abroad. We've been observing the classes of all the students, and we're not really seeing like parents are sort of sitting there and interfering, but I'm seeing some marvelous stuff taking place. And I totally agree with Vandana that in fact, when I sent a message to the teachers and I said when it was darkness all around, you're the one who showed the lights. You're the ones who came up, and you didn't sit at home. You actually came out and you did something which was new. And it's marvelous what they've done. And I think parents, maybe they're now realizing it's not so easy as some parents used to feel.
And teaching is not easy.
I really, really feel that this whole thing is going to work beautifully with parents now realizing, like Vandana has said and Mr. Kumar has said, that it's not so easy teaching the children. You can't teaching 40 in a class.
May I say something here?
Impossible sometimes.
May I say
Please,
something?
ma'am, please.
What Vanita ji is saying is absolutely correct, that teachers have really outshone themselves, but it wasn't easy. I can tell you that. Within the first week, when we knew that this thing had to be implemented, etc., of course, we had these online programs going on with our computer department, working with smaller groups of teachers and, sending me the feedback that, okay, we've trained this lot and that lot. And then once the classes rolled out, a week later, I remember having a Zoom call with a lot of my departments, and almost everybody in some department or the other said, ma'am, you have no idea. हमारे हाथ पैर ठंडे हो रहे थे. We didn't know what was going to happen. And one teacher in particular said, I told my son, you cannot move from near my desk. You have to sit with me for the first 2 or 3 days while I conduct my classes so that I don't fall flat on my face. Because a teacher has great respect and prestige, and despite the fact that children know much more about us than technology, the teacher's role is definitely something that is hugely respected. And she said, I can't have my children think that I've fallen flat on my face. But that was very, very temporary. And everybody is like now a pro, so to speak.
And that's exactly what my next question was, actually, ma'am. So thank you so much for bringing that out. Premkumar sir, do you think that because blended learning is about technology, do you think our educators over the past 6-7 months and the parents of our students they have become more accustomed to technology, in fact, to a level where they start enjoying the technology rather being very reluctant to use it.
Yes, I fully agree with you. There was a lot of apprehension. I can say in my school, when we started the online classes, because we have never used technology so extensively like this. We have a smart class, but it was not used for a 45 minutes lesson, you see. It was just to show some demonstration or to show a video presentation. But now, the teaching itself is completely 40 minutes engaging students online using technology. So initially, there was a lot of difficulties encountered by the staff. But today, if you ask our teachers, they love using the technology. And they have learned many methods of reaching out to students right from kindergarten. Of course, as someone said, grade 6 onward students are self-reliant. So they are also, you see, today our students of class 6, 7, 8, they can, fine-tune your mobile, which you can never do it. You just give it to them. You see, the features of your mobile, you may not know as much as your son will be knowing, in fact. So what has happened now is that teachers are loving the online lessons and various methods of testing students. And Vandana ji sometime back said she's going to conduct the half-yearly exam soon. We have finished our half-yearly exam here. And I would like to add something about this half-yearly exam after we finished. Teachers have learned to set a question paper totally different from the question paper we set for normal, face-to-face class.
Absolutely.
Because we want to ensure that the Google doesn't become a teacher for them. So we have to set questions that they cannot Google to get the answer.
Yeah.
So, and we finished the examination. I am very pleased to inform you. I also teach a class 12. I teach chemistry in class 12. And the marks scored in MCQ and in the pen paper test are almost same.
Wow.
And students are not copied. That's a great thing which I learned.
Yeah.
And that credit goes to my teachers. So teachers have learned how to use Google Forms, MS Team Forms, all types of, MCQ setting platforms, which they would have never ever learned if this pandemic didn't strike us in the month of February in Kuwait. So
amazing.
thanks to Corona, COVID-19. That's a positive I take. Yes.
So this is such an interesting discussion. We've always almost crossed the halfway line, and so far we've established that parents are coming on board. Yes. Parents and teachers and schools are coming together to make sure that the learning continues. We've seen that the teachers are going beyond.
Yes.
I know personally teachers have been working 12 hours at least a day in the initial months just to understand technology, create lessons, and so on. So, Vanita ma'am, I had a question. All this, talks about it creates the right primordial soup to give rise to the new evolution of education in India. What do you think we need to include in our teacher training now to make sure that blended learning can become more efficient and it is not taken as a one-off thing? Boss, 2020 was a 0 year. We're done with it. Let's go back to our roots. So that, that doesn't happen.
I with all praise to the teachers, I don't think we're really doing blended learning as yet. And I think it's a whole lot of hard work for the teachers. They put in something and they've learned how to do technology, which a lot of them were scared of. In fact, here, I just want to share something which happened in one of the classes I was observing in the beginning. And I must say the teacher handled it very well. So we had this class and the teacher said, all right, is everybody there? And they said, yes. So she said, all right, can somebody press the button to restart recording the class? So we had these little 6th graders who said, ma'am, you have to press the button. We don't have it. And then after some time, somebody said, this one wants to come in. He's come late. So she said, can somebody please let him in? And so the class said, ma'am, we can't let him in. You have to let him in. And she handled it beautifully. She said, oh, okay, I have to do it. And a couple of months later, I was sort of back to the same school and watching another class and saw the efficiency. But coming back to blended learning, they've done this, but there is a whole new scenario out there. When you say blended learning, okay, all right. So you're going to have something the children will see on the video. You're going to have something when they come back to class and you're going to discuss. You can't do it the way. You see, a lot of the online teaching is using technology, but teaching still in the same formal method. A lot of the teachers are still not doing what blended learning is talking about, which is let the kid watch something. Then you bring them to school and then you have a sort of a group discussion. Then you separate them, let them do their own tasks. Then they come back and then they present it. The teacher is only helping them to understand. And the one big problem there is in our B.Ed schools, we are not taught that. In fact, when you look at the junior schools, I always find that the primary teachers are having a better time of it because they've always been very involved in the students. And, they've always done a lot of activities with them. So right now, when they talk about teacher training, I think a large part of it not only will be the technology, the teachers will have to change completely their lesson plans. It's not walking into class now and saying, all right, here's the PowerPoint presentation and I am going through it and I'll read it out to you. No. It's not teachers doing the presentation or the teachers are standing in front of the board and writing and teaching, which is pretty much the case in a lot of online classes too. The teachers are either writing or using the PowerPoint presentation. It's going to be the teachers sitting down and figuring out, how am I going to teach this lesson? What part of the lesson am I going to give them to do themselves? Which part are they going to do as a group? Which part am I going to explain to them? And for that, I think the training has to be there. Teachers have to sort of, like somebody said, it's got to be a paradigm shift completely. It's not, I was reading somewhere that when they said, they gave an example online of a teacher who's teaching using the PowerPoint, and they said, would you call this blended learning? And the answer was no. Blended learning would mean when the child is putting in, and it's going to be a massive effort for the teachers. They've already done this part. Now the next part is the same lessons that you have taught. How are you going to divide? That it's got to be. So that, I think the training has to be there again. It's going to be tough.
I completely agree with that fact, actually. Vandana ma'am, taking a cue from Vanita ma'am, what she just said, that there has to be a lot of training. And most of these tools that we use today, the online tools or technological tools, whether it had been smart classes from a decade ago or, the MS systems by Google, Microsoft, Cisco, you name it, they have approached you, to talk about these things. Are these companies, are these special, education related products listening to the principals and teachers to improve their products for, create better learning solutions?
So I don't know whether they're listening. I'm sure they are. Simply because when we started out with Zoom, and there was this whole hue and cry about how Zoom could be, interfered with and all sorts of problems. But within the first week or 10 days, we noticed that there were newer changes coming about in their platform, and they, tried to ensure that the bad name that was coming to them due to certain problems in the, platform were removed. All those problems were removed. But having said that, I think that the way forward is going to be when more and more companies are offering their products, their technology, their way of, implementing large group meetings for education at a very, very low cost. Because whatever we might say, cost is a very big factor in adopting a platform or taking up a company's product to be used in our schools. We cannot afford to spend huge amounts of money on buying space or whatever you want to call it on a platform. I think the need is for an Indian company to come forward and say, okay, we are going to create this for India at least. So I think that I hope somebody's listening, that there is a product available, there is a platform available. Maybe the government should do something about it where we can just log on and, take it up as part of our infrastructure, like we do our school building and, electricity and so on and so forth. So that's my point. I don't know whether they are listening.
That's a very valid point, ma'am. In the beginning of the lockdown, I was approached by a couple of companies, one from Noida, one from Mumbai, and they were creating these learner management systems.
Yeah.
And they were asking me to, come on board and help them out and everything. The moment I saw their, software, I'm a computer engineer. From a computer engineer's perspective, they look very nice. They're like, wow, what a software.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then when I, switched on, changed my hat to my educator hat, and I could see, oh my God, this is going to take so much time and effort to just use this software and, and then the rest of the time has to be done educating people. This is a question to Premkumar sir first, and then Vanita, Sehgal, and then you, ma'am, all of you. Do you think it will be wiser to just have a small IT team inside the school to create a solution which is very customized for the school itself? We'll start with Premkumar sir.
Yeah, we do have a good IT team in our school. And we started off with Zoom in the beginning. And as Vandana ma'am spoke about the negative aspect of Zoom that is being spread across through media. So we also felt that Zoom had certain limitations, like intruders, getting into the class and making noise. So we have now stabilized our platform and we use MS Teams. And when we started with MS Teams, it was very difficult to use. But after writing to the MS Teams about our concern and our observations, today MS Team has, changed. Earlier we could see just 4 people on a screen. Now we can see a whole class of 25 students. Our class strength is 25. We can see all the 25 students, on the screen. So it is more safe and it is more easy now to work on MS Teams, our assignments and corrections and tests. Everything is through MS Teams now. So I feel that over a period of time, even the people like the Google Classroom, the Google Meet, WebEx, Cisco, and Zoom and MS Teams, they all, are working towards enhancing the comfort and user-friendly approach to these platforms, because one day this blended learning is going to be the, mode of education across the world. So by that time, I feel all these people,
20 odd DPS schools that you're also looking into.
I would say, we need the service providers and we need the platform. But I am not, if you're talking about the IT team being there and making our programs for us to suit our purpose, I'm all for it. I am not for taking anything from anybody outside. Now, there's a very small example. Schools have, people coming in every day and saying that I've got this. Now you get a tablet and you get the class all the textbooks will be there and we'll send you the questions and there'll be this assessment going on at the same time. And I asked this man one question and I said, why will we want you to question the children? Let the teacher who's teaching the class think about what kind of questions she wants to do, what kind of assessment she wants to do. And this comes back to the smart boards that we have. A lot of teachers don't use them because they're not very happy with the kind of material there and they haven't made it themselves because they think the material is there. So it's a vicious cycle. I would say that, yes, I would, looking at all the schools and I've seen the kind of talent the teachers have. I have, in fact, even been advising them. You're using the videos right now of, from YouTube or whatever you're using. Good. But start making your own. Because there's one problem that I did see sometimes, and this I think Vandana did come up with. When you pick up something which has been made in the West, sometimes those children are not even understanding the context and they're not understanding the places named or the words and pronunciation. So I would say, not even say we have a foreign Indian company. I would say The schools have such talent, and let's not forget, a lot of the companies are, after all, using teachers from schools to make these products. I mean, it's not as if they just pick somebody from outside. A lot of times, teachers are being asked, "Can you make this?" So let each school come up with its own. You need a very strong IT team going to get this all together, and then the teachers. If I feel I'm not very happy with the assessment that I did yesterday with one class, I can change it. But if you have somebody from outside, then you have to change. I know that when we were doing the results, and anytime I wanted to change, I would be told by my IT person in school, "Ma'am, it's going to take a few weeks. It's going to take a month. You can't make the change right now." So if you have it in school, then definitely, I think every school will benefit by it. I would even say if we have 220 schools, I would even say we shouldn't centralize it. Let every school do its own, because that way change comes faster. And then why should we all be copies of one or the other? Let's just be independent. My school might want to do something differently. That's the way I feel.
That's great. So what you're suggesting is that we do have a small IT team which can customize things for us, make things easier. But even big school chains, they should decentralize that. They should let the autonomy be with the schools so that they can customize for themselves.
Yes. I mean, if you want to just give some samples, fine. But let the schools, as a teacher, like Mr. Kumar said, I taught right till the last day. I teach English. We had general assignments. We had general things we gave everybody. But then I used to tell the teachers, I said, if you have something specific to give it, because I'm teaching in a particular way. I may not be teaching in the way that is coming through in the assignment given. And in English, you know how subjective it is. So the kid would say, well, this is saying something. And I would say, you know what, you just look at my assignments. And I think teachers should not be made to feel that, all right, that assignment is coming, assessment is coming from somewhere else. You have taught the class. You know what you want to assess. I feel that's very important.
Wow. Vandana ma'am, taking a cue from there, the teachers, what Vanita ma'am said, teachers are so subjective about the way they teach because that's how they create magic, right? That's what I completely believe in. Do you think that the teachers will be willing to, put in or, create this behavior change that they have to, go in the studios, which might be in the school or outside the school, and create videos for their own classes, which might be used later on? Do you think that behavior change is going to be easy to come or it's going to be difficult?
See, anything worth doing is not going to be easy. Okay? If it's easy, I mean, it's just, okay, let me just sit at home and, I don't want to badmouth anybody at all. But, I have been requested to attend seminars and my teachers too, by various agencies, where the seminar is basically just slides made of the text which the creator has created, and it's read out. I think we discussed this, you and I, in our private conversation. So having said that, I think that I can vouch for my teachers, the teachers in my school. They are an amazing lot. Always willing to learn more, always willing to go out on a limb and do that extra something that needs to be done to create more resources for the children. And it is not, I am not talking of today. This has been a kind of mantra in our school for the past so many years. That, teachers are encouraged to create their own resources, use whatever tools they have within the school with the help of the IT team, with the help of their departmental members, etc., to create something, as you say, to eventually bring magic into the classroom and ensure better learning. Because if experiential learning takes place in a way that the teacher and the student are both involved in it, a student is never really going to forget, what the teacher made her or him experience. So I think teachers are very gung-ho about these things. They are absolutely ready to take on these challenges. And from what I can gather from Mr. Premkumar and Vanita ji, they are very hands-on people themselves. When a leader is hands-on and is ready to tell everybody, okay, I'm here with you. We will hold hands and move forward. I appreciate the work that you need to put in. The guidance we will provide. And magic happens.
Perfect. We are nearing the end of the session, and it has been such an interesting conversation. I wish we can do two more hours of this. But keeping in mind the time, I'm going to ask one question which is slightly critical, because no complete discussion is complete if we only talk about one side of the things, right? Now, there is something I've been experiencing as an educator, somebody who's taken, I think, almost 100 webinars so far since the lockdown began. There is the concept of death by webinar. And students, parents, teachers, I mean, the fatigue is a lot.
Yes.
Students are no longer interested. I mean, I had to put in special efforts just to make them interested and, ask me questions after my presentation. We'll start with you, Vandana, ma'am. What do you think of death by webinar? And do you think this is going to be a big obstacle, even if we, put in all the technology and everything? This is still going to be an obstacle.
So that is why what Vanita ji says is very relevant, that this is not blended learning. Blended learning will happen when we combine the best parts of the online process as well as the classroom and give each other the space to understand, to absorb, to apply, to make mistakes, to fall, to pick up ourselves and then start the process again. I absolutely believe in death by webinar. Unfortunately, currently the situation is that we have to die a little every day, So whether it is the teacher, whether it is the principal, whether it is the student, whose parent will write to me, there was a deluge of complaints in the beginning that you're spending, this much time and that much time, and how can you do this, and have some mercy, and you can't, so we have really gone to the other extremes. The pendulum is truly shifted into the other realm, so to speak. But I think that going forward, once things ease out a little, and we are in the school situation where we can weigh the pros and cons of what we have learned and what we already had with us, and then blend the two beautifully, I am absolutely sure we will all be revived. This is not permanent death, don't worry.
Premkumar sir, what do you think?
Yes, in the beginning it was fun attending lots of webinars. And everyone used to ask, when is the next webinar? And give us the link and so on. But when the number of webinars increased, as you said, the slow death process started. Okay. So now, even if we invite them for a webinar, they think twice whether they are free to attend or whether it will be, stressing them. Okay. So, but I feel personally, I attend a number of webinars in a day, in fact. I felt that each time I attended a webinar, I learned something. And I'm a believer of this statement that as a teacher, you are an eternal learner and learning ends at the grave. So I believe in that. So I take everything very positively. But I'm not saying that everyone should be doing, my teachers need not do what I'm doing, because they have their own commitments and their own family, commitments as well. So, but in the beginning, there's a lot of enthusiasm and energy in all of them. But slowly, I think, as you said, they are feeling that they will die because of webinar. So they are choosy nowadays, very choosy. Yeah. So, but I feel it's a learning process, and it is good also. We all learn, And learning has no age limit, you see. The learning begins at the cradle and ends at the grave.
Absolutely.
I believe
Thank you
in
so
that.
much for that, sir.
Yeah.
Vanita ma'am, what do you think about this particular phenomenon which is happening?
Before I come up with that, I'm going to say something here. When CBSE came up with CCE in 2009, it was my bad luck, really, that I was looking after class 9 that time, and I was the headmistress, and I was in charge of CCE in school. And let me tell you, we flooded the children with projects. It wasn't just me, it was everybody. CBSE got complaints that the teachers have gone mad. Every day the child comes home with this project he has to do in one subject, and the kids would come to school carrying these huge monuments that they had made. God knows why we were making them do that. So the same things happened with webinars, of course. So when it came, I am now, because I'm in the HRD, so webinars is the only way I've been able to train teachers. So I can understand when my letters go and they must be saying, here it comes again. They never seem to stop. But what I did, and my team, I can see 2 of them are here, Nita and Sudesh. What we did was that after some time, you realize webinars are getting a little, monotonous. So we brought in different things, like you have a panel. So we are going to have in November, we've invited teachers to do panel discussions on various topics, whether it's online teaching, whether it's blended teaching, whether it's the problems they're facing. We also did something in the month of June and August, and that is that we asked them to share their online practices with the rest of the teachers. So we have one teacher from each school attending, 200 odd people sitting there, and the teacher talks about her thing. We also did an exchange with a school abroad. So I think if you want to make anything a success, you have to keep making certain changes in it. And I think what is happening is if you stick to the same format and people get a little bored. So it's there to stay. And I think we're learning a lot. I totally agree with Mr. Kumar. You're learning a lot from it. And every time we just finished one webinar yesterday, and when we have it for 2 hours, it goes over easily by half an hour, 45 minutes, because the teachers have so many questions to ask. And I think that's very important, that when you have a webinar, you must allow interaction with the speaker. I think it is something that I think as Indians, we just get a little tired because we are very bad listeners. We don't want to listen. But I think it's something we have to learn.
Vanita ji, do you think it's an Indian thing that we are bad listeners?
Yes, I think so. I even in classes abroad, I used to see, when I was teaching and stuff for some time, I used to see these children would listen to the other child. They would listen to him very patiently. Here, if a child starts speaking, the other child will interrupt him and give the answer. I think we have a little problem in listening. And I think that's one of the most important communicative skills.
Yeah,
absolutely. I will agree with Vanita ma'am a little over here. I mean, I've lived a couple of years abroad in different countries, different continents, and the behavior of Indians was pretty much the same. So, yes, I can agree with that over there.
We just need to listen.
All right. So, guys, the last 5 minutes, and I would love to have your amazing concluding remarks so that we can leave the viewers also with something to think about, some food for thought, and also a place where we can continue the discussion so that the discussion doesn't remain constricted or limited to this forum, but it starts happening with educators all across the country. Vandana ma'am, please, I would love to have your views on this.
Well, I'm actually really looking forward to having some kind of interaction, physical interaction with my teachers and the students, maybe in the next few months, because, well, we are in the process of reopening in some kind of way, starting maybe next month. And I think this will give us the opportunity and the time as well as the space to plan, to include some of these wonderful, opportunities that have been created into our regular school curriculum. I mean, honestly speaking, I really do want to have the flexibility of giving students the opportunity to be at home and do certain projects and research-based studies, which are teacher-led from the school, but they are implemented by the children at home. And exactly like Vanita ji said, that, and then the children come back and they regroup and then they go back and then they come back again. Because I do think that our typical work day and a school day for teachers as well as for children was pretty tedious and overly structured, that it's only along this path and nothing else. This entire time has given us the opportunity to realize that there is another modality that can be very safely and intelligently incorporated into the educational system so that everybody gets a little bit of breather and a kind of a, situation where children are actually senior children, loving to come back to school, looking forward to come back to school because they have so much to share from what they have done at home. I mean, I think that is what I'm waiting for.
Wow. Those are some amazing statements, ma'am. Thank you so much for that. Premkumar, sir, what would your concluding remark be?
My concluding remark is blending or blended learning. It actually allows the students to develop a sense of ownership of their own studies. And it helps them to understand that teaching is not something that's imposed, but it's an instrument that for their own benefit, for the sake of their future. So today in the conventional classroom traditional methods, everyone feels stressed out and, they feel the teachers are pressurizing them. Now, in this blended learning, I don't think the teacher's involvement will be so intense as it is today. So the whole, education, learning process is a ownership that lies with the students. And I'm sure that in the process of shifting to blended learning, the self-learning process happens, and a lot of data research will happen. Decision-making process will become easy for the students. They don't need their parents or teachers anymore. And the overall IT skills of the youngsters who are now in grade 1 and moving to the middle school and to senior school would have, increased manifold times. And they will finally learn to concentrate. The concentration will increase once, the blended learning has to happen. Because if in the conventional class, they even may sleep actually. But during an online class, if they miss listening to the teacher, I think they will have to pay for it. Because there is no question of, meeting their friends, unless and until they make a phone call or talk. So I feel on the whole, the blended learning is going to help children understand that learning is to be done very passionately and never feel stressed out and don't be frustrated. These are my closing thoughts.
Thank you so much, sir. That makes such a, wholesome sense of the entire scenario. Yeah. Vanita, ma'am, what would you like to say in the concluding remarks for this wonderful discussion?
It was dark and it was very scary. I think the world was not moving out. And you, the teachers, you took up the challenge. You spearheaded a movement. You made sure that people were not being driven insane at all. You brought light to the rooms. Wow. I'm proud to be a teacher. And I think I'm proud still today. When I see the kind of work and I see the teachers who used to come and tell me that they couldn't type and they were doing so much work online. You have made such a change. And I totally feel this is really one of the most noblest professions because you make the citizens of tomorrow. Now, don't hold back. We have been talking of interactive education for a long time. And let's face it, all of us know who have been teaching and were principals that we've been doing less of that and more of talk and less of really doing interactive. Blended teaching is bringing that. Don't hold back. Let's show the world we have the best brains. Let's show them that we can do it. I mean, we bring this technology, but at the same time, change what you have to change. You can do it. I mean, you did it overnight with technology. And keep that banner flying high, that flag flying high, because it's something which has really kept the country going and the world going. To the students, I do have a message, and that is that it can only work if you make it work. Blended teaching, if you're given the independence to do something, then you have to be responsible enough to also take the challenge. If something has to be done at home, if you're talking of blended teaching and you're saying you study this at home and you bring it to school, then do it. Otherwise, it is very frustrating for the teacher there. And for the parents, without your support, nothing is possible. It's very, very easy to criticize. But now you've seen that what a lot of work goes into it. So with your support and with us all listening to each other, like I said, I think it's going to be a remarkable decade ahead. I think we've shown that we could meet the challenge. And like I said, we went from being scared to being very, very sure of what we are doing. And all I can say is, like Gandhiji said, we actually showed that be the change you want to see in the world.
Perfect. Be the change that you want to see in the world. And I think all of you educators, it's my sincere pranam to all of you and all the teachers out there and the parents and the students who have made this happen. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here. It's been a really wonderful discussion. I'm so privileged to have you here.
Thanks to Pratham.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Vanita ma'am and Vandana ji. And,
thank you, Ji.
Nanda.
Thank you. Thank you
very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
So we sign off.
Right. So Manish sir, I think you can switch off the live session on Facebook.